Hello guys and girls, we have a Ford Focus 2012 model with the dual clutch transmission. It's a 2-liter petrol engine, direct injection. The problem with this car is that you cannot select reverse, and sometimes it doesn't start, and at times you'll start and then going down the road the gear shift is all funny. It's stuttering, it's jumping out of the gear, feels like it's not selecting certain gears, and sometimes the reverse works. Since this car has been to my shop, just bringing it in and out, it did work, reverse work at one stage. So we're gonna diagnose this car today. So all I have is my scan tool in the car hooked up. So we're just gonna look for fault codes. So I already selected the car, so I'll just scan the ECU, the transmission computer, this one for you, and let's see what we got. Alright, this is our fault codes here. Clutch position sensor, circuit B, clutch actuator, circuit range performance, clutch B stuck engage, invalid data received from ECM, clutch B. So a lot of clutch B stuck and not functioning fault codes are there. We'll just quickly go back and erase that fault and see which ones come back, which ones don't. That's erased. Let's try that again. Let's check. Again, this is on the TCM transmission computer module, which I'm scanning here on the scan tool. Ford does take a bit of time to read the faults. With every Ford I had this problem, so there's no fault. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna cycle the key on and off again. Sometimes we have to do that in order for the faults to reoccur. And no faults detected. Alright, so according to customer, we cannot start the car, so I'm just gonna go ahead and try to start it. And it does start this time. So let's go ahead and check the fault codes again. And it did happen to me when the car wasn't starting. As soon as you hit start on the key and come back to run position, the starter motor wouldn't crank, but what it was doing was it was making a lot of noise under the bonnet. Sounds like the gear actuator were going all crazy, while just tapping and clicking noise all through the car you could hear under the bonnet. But it's not doing it today. Let me jump in the car and see if we got the reverse today, because it's not coming out with fault, and yeah, and it's not clicking today. So let me try if the reverse working today. reverse is working today, so amazing. It wasn't working reverse for the last few times I tried to bring this car in and out of the shop. So let me go ahead and do some testing under the bonnet. Alright, what I've done here is I am hooked up to my scope on the screen, and I am going to see what we got on the clutch actuator. I'll just go down and I'll show you what I'm looking at. So right here, there's your one clutch actuator that sits right there, and there's a lot of wires coming out, but the three main wires is a thick white one. It's behind the front wires there. I got 3 channels coming out of there. So that's your one clutch actuator, and there's your another clutch actuator down here. I'll show you a bit later. Let's just get what signals we get. Let's just see what signals we get from here. Alright, I'm just gonna start the car and see what it does. Okay, I'll just try to explain to you what I'm seeing here. So I'm down on the actuator underneath the gearbox. There's one more at the top as well, like I explained to you. So let's just go back where we started. Basically, you see 4 volts on the green channel and the 4 volts on the red channel. So all the channels are lined up there. It's just on top of each other, so you can only see the blue trace, but there is all 3 there, just believe me. So if you just scroll, if you just scroll this way, so when I turn the ignition on, this should stay at 4 volts, and this is kind of like a bias voltage from the transmission computer to that actuator. And when you turn the key off, it's not here, but I will tell you what happens. It will stay 4 volts for an extended period of time, usually about half a minute to, let's say, a couple of minutes, and it will turn, the computer will turn itself off, and it will go down to 0 volt, which is not seen in this live picture here, but that's what it does. So 4 volts is a bias voltage, so we're going up here, 4 volts. And as soon as I turn the key on, yep, you'll see a slightly voltage drop there, which is, I guess, normal. And when I started the car, you see a lot of interference from the alternator, because the car is running, right? So let's go to the next page. Car's still running. But this actuator is doing nothing, it's still staying around 4 volts, but there's a lot of interference there with the alternator. I'm not too worried about it. Let's just keep going to the next frame, and you see a lot of activities happening, red, blue, green, all the channels. So we can separate this up and down. Let's bring the red channel down, so you can see it's going from 0 volt to about battery voltage 14 volts. Because the car is running. Let's go blue channel, let's see what it's doing. So blue channel is doing the same thing, going from 0 to 12, 14 volts, and green channel is also doing exactly the same. So they are, all 3 of them are going from 0 to 12 volts
according to the obviously the demand of the actuator and what computer believes to happen there. So now let's just zoom in and I'll sort of show you what we're looking inside here, because it's a bit messy there. So I'll just zoom it a bit more there. And yeah, we're basically seeing a duty cycle 0 to 12 volt actuator power and ground feed. We can go into detail and see which one's earth, which one's power, but I'm not too worried about for this scenario. So we're just gonna sort of move on from here, and it stays like that until before I say anything, like I said, the car is running up until this point, all the way the car is running. So when this went up and down like that's what I did was I went from park to reverse. So that's where the reverse clutch is engaging. I'm thinking this is where the reverse this is what the reverse actuator is. Like I told you, there's two in this car, and one is for 1, 3, and 5, I believe. The other one is for 2, 4, and 6 and reverse if it's a 6-speed. If it's not a 6-speed, it's 2, 4 reverse. So 2 actuator to actuate the clutch in and out. So I'm looking at, I think, the reverse clutch here, because that's when this is all started to show us some activities. And as soon as I went back to park, it went down to 4 volts again, the bias voltage, and I went back to reverse again, and it did the same thing, and I turned the car off, and it stays 4 volt for extended period of time, like I said, until the TCM is switched off on its own.
Alright, the top actuator for this car is sitting right in this area here. There's your air filter. You gotta pull the air filter and a few covers off. You can get to this actuator right here. That's your second clutch actuator. Alright, they're both identical. The bottom and the top one, both identical. Same exact plug and everything. So just trying to fix this camera angle. That's a bit better. Just turn that around a bit. Okay. Now this one is a plug here. It's got a coolant hose on the way. So there's a little yellow tab right there. You just gotta push this back like that, and you gotta pull this plastic tab while you're pulling on the plug at the same time. So just like that, pull this plastic tab out and pull the plug out. So that's the plug there, and to get to the wires you have to pull this little plastic tab. So just with your flat screwdriver, just push the clip and this will come out like that. And just put this aside and we can get to the wires at the back. So like I said, there's a few small wires, different colors, red, black and all that at the top, and you'll have 3 white thick wires at the bottom. So these 3 thick wires are the powers and grounds for the actuator, and I don't really have a wiring diagram, so I'm just going by just what I know and experience. I think this 3 power and earth is controlled by the TCM itself. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get another scope signal from this wires, because I only have 4 channel scope, so I can only use 4. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use 2 for the bottom and 2 for the top. I don't know which one's what, but as we saw the signal from the bottom actuator, all 3 were doing pretty much similar things. So I don't think, as long as I see signals, I'm happy with it. So let me hook up my scope.
Now I got my 2-channel hooked up to the top and the 2-channel still hooked up to the bottom. I haven't touched it since, so we're just gonna come over here on the screen. Alright, I'm gonna just go and start the car now. Alright, the car's running just in park. I'm gonna go and change gears from reverse drive and we'll see what's going on. I'll just take a little bit longer time base so we'll have a bit more picture on the screen. So I'm just gonna change that to maybe a 10-second screen. And we'll try to get, so car's running now, all the voltage staying about 4 volts. A red channel 4 volts, green is also 4 volts, and a yellow channel is also 4. So they're all sitting at 4 volts bias voltage. That's what we want to see. We're looking a little bit different picture, like this is a bit dirty, 4 volts compared to that. That's much cleaner. I think it's because my ground point, I'm just getting the ground off the block, so just ignore that completely. I'm just gonna go in there and then I'm gonna change gears now and see which one moves, what happens. So just remember this top 2 here is for the top clutch actuator. This bottom is for the bottom actuator. That's how I got my setup there. So alright, let's pause this. Just before we go anywhere, like I said earlier, right here where the transmission computer shuts down, because I turned this key off right here, and it takes a little bit time before it goes back to 0. So just something we can remember. Alright, let's go back to the previous pages. So I did a lot of gear changes here, so it looks a bit messy, but I'll try to explain to you as much as I can. So let's ignore this whole thing at the front. So let's start here. Just let's go from here to probably there, and we'll see what's going on here. So here I'm doing I'm at park. See, all the 4 lines are on 4 volts, and then I went to reverse. I'll just separate this line so we can see a bit better. Okay, and let's put the green one up top too. So red and blue channel here, as you can see. As soon as I hit reverse, the red and green channels start sending power on earth to the actuator. This is the bottom actuator. And now then I went to neutral. See, both the lines are dropped back to 4 volts again, all 4 lines, sorry. And then I went to hit drive, and on the drive we got this actuator working, the bottom 2, but the top one is not working. But then if you wait a little bit longer, then the top start working up here. If you can see the top start sending power on earth, because drive you're gonna need to have that you know, both actuators working to change gears. So I was revving the car is on the hoist, the wheels are free spinning, so it might be just changing gears when I was revving. So you get activities there and here as well. And then and this one too, you can see the activities. I'll just minimize that, and this one start working, the bottom actuator. So both the actuators start working on drive, but on reverse I can only see this one. The bottom actuator is only doing something. So and I went back to park there, and next page is, let me zoom out of there. Then I went to park, and then I turned the car off. And when I turned the car off, both the actuator also doing some activities. I think you'll just setting to the position where you're gonna restart next time. It's easier, it's in neutral, or some sort of activities there, and you can see both actuators are working. And then it goes back, once I turn the key off, it goes back to 0 volt, all 4 of them. Alright guys, after I ran this car for a while, obviously transmission engine is warm now. As you can see on the dash there, the temperature is sitting about normal temperature. I lost reverse gear now, so I'll just show you. So I'm just gonna go into reverse, and then I'm gonna try to rev it. You can see the wheels there. I'm still on the hoist. See, the wheel's not turning at all, but I can sort of rev the car. It's not turning. Now I will go to drive, and then you can see it's turning. You can see it's turning, right? So yep, we lost reverse now. And when you actually drive, you got a gears, feels like it's jumping gears, is not getting like sequential gear shift. And on the scan tool, I scanned the data again, sorry, the faults again, and you can see our fault codes. Clutch position sensor B circuit is back again. Okay guys, I'm inside the car. Just want to quickly show you a live data, how we can diagnose a little bit. I'm not gonna say it's 100% proof, but a little bit on where we standing here. So if you look on the data here on the clutch B circuits,
It says no fault, no fault, no fault, no fault. So it's showing as no fault, but obviously there is a fault. Now what I wanted to show you is this input shaft. Sorry, I think I got the wrong. Yeah, what I wanted to show you is this input shaft A and input shaft B raw. So basically this is dual clutch, so there's a 2 input shaft for each individual row of gears. So what I wanted to show you is when you go on reverse and I rev it, nothing happens. So when I go to drive, I'm just on drive now, and I rev it and start, yep, you can see the clutch A definitely for the drive system, and clutch B is for your reverse system. You can see a little bit of a clutch spinning happening on clutch B as well. I'm not sure, I can't explain to you why it's happening, but as you can see, it moves off with the revs, with the engine revs. So that means clutch A is disengaged, but when you go to reverse, where we need to have a clutch B disengage, and even if we rev the car, that's when you should be disengaging. It doesn't. See, it doesn't. I'm revving the car, you can hear it. It doesn't change as well. So what this suggesting is the clutch is not disengaging, it's in engaged position. That's where it's stuck, it's not disengaging. So this dual clutch Ford system or Volkswagen cars can have problem where the clutch is engaged all the time, like even if the actuator is trying to disengage it because of the failure of the clutch or pressure plate, something's happened inside. Now it's engaged all the time, even if the actuator is disengaging the clutch, it's not disengaging, where you will see input speed here like all the time. When you're trying to change the gear won't change, you won't select reverse or sometimes drive, because the input shaft is turning, the clutch is engaged all the time, so the computer does not want to change gear. That is also pretty common, I think, on Ford vehicles with the dual clutch transmission. So basically, looking at this data, we know the clutch is not turning, input shaft is not turning, and the computer should engage reverse gear, which it is doing, it is engaging, but the clutch actuator is not disengaging the clutch for the drive. I think that's what's happening with my understanding. If someone knows more than what I think it is, please let me know, and I'm open to learn. But that's what I believe is happening here. So next time when you have a problem with the Ford transmission, you can go into this data and you can quickly verify, is it the clutch problem or is it something else causing it with this data. After the reversed, we lost the reverse, I did another scope testing here, and this is the result, and I will go through with you so we both can understand what's happening here. Alright, so at this point, just follow my finger for now. At this point I had the car stop, and that's when I started the car right here in this point, and they're all sitting at 4 volts like I should. And then I went and put it in reverse, and nothing happened here. Like in the last scope testing, when everything was working, we were seeing activities on this channel for the reverse, this 2 channel, which is for the bottom, I'm sorry, yeah, it is for the bottom actuator. But this time I didn't see any activities here, and none on the top actuator as well. Then I went to neutral,
and still nothing, which is normal. And then I went to drive, and you can see the top actuator got some activities going 12 volts like it should, but the bottom is staying flat at 4 volts the whole time until I turn the car off, back to park, and it went back to 0 once the TCM switched off. So in my understanding, I think what's happening is the TCM transmission control unit is not supplying the right voltage into this bottom actuator when it should. Looking at this, I don't think there's anything else to blame. I think the power supply is good, earth is good, and I did read a few forums and a few technical service bulletins where the Ford had many known issues with the gearbox and TCMs. Knowing all that and looking at this test we done today, I think this car gonna need a new TCM in order to fix it, because I think the clutch is fine. Like we see the input speed sensor on the scan tool, clutch is disengaged, but the computer is not engaging this clutch in order for reverse to work. That's what I think is happening. Now we can go all crazy and check powers and grounds and check the fuse. I do actually have a fuse diagram here if you are looking for fuse. This is it sits under the bonnet like that. So number 26, 15 and 38 is the transmission control fuse. They do variable different things. We can check the fuses and all that, but fuse not gonna come back to life if it's our issue, because we know it's not working, and sometimes it works. So I don't think it's a fuse issue. I think it's a computer control issue. Once the engine warms up, transmission control module warms up, it loses all its all this reverse gears and all that. So I think it's in the transmission. When it's dead cold, car runs fine for a little bit, and once it warms up, the transmission starts shifting funny and you lose reverse gear. So yeah, this is a simple, not really simple, but some tests we can do on Ford transmission. Another thing I want to do is I want to swap out the clutch actuator, just in case if the clutch actuator had issue. I don't think, looking at these signals, I don't think the clutch actuator actually have the issue, but just for peace of mind, before I tell the customer, hey, you need a new computer, go to Ford or whatever, I want to make sure that I've covered most of the stuff I think is relevant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the clutch actuator from bottom to the top. I really don't know which one's A and B, but again, looking at this scope, I think the bottom one is our B actuator and the top one is our A actuator on the gearbox. I'll just quickly show you where they're located at, and I'll swap it around, and we'll do the same test again. This is the location of the clutch actuators. So looking at the front of the car, there's your engine cover. This is where the air filter box, everything sits. You have to pull it out in order. And that's your clutch actuator. I showed you how to take this plug off, the electrical plug, and then there's a 4 E bolts. You just gotta take this off and it will slide out very easily. It's not hard. And the other one is down. You gotta go underneath the car and right at the front on the side of the gearbox. That's where it is. Exactly same part. You can swap it around and see if it does anything different. That's what I'm gonna do. In fact, I've already done it. So I've already swapped A to B, and we're gonna start the car and we're gonna see if there's any different. Alright guys, I did swap the actuators. Did the same test, drive, reverse, didn't make a difference. Signal stayed the same on the scope, nothing changed. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the actuator, but if you don't have all the equipment to test it out, that's something you can do. If you got a fault code saying solenoid, not solenoid, actuator A or B is faulty, you can swap out and see if you get different gears now, instead of having, let's say, one's controlling reverse and all that, and you swap the actuator, you may get reverse back, but you may lose some of the drive gears, something like that. I'm not sure, I haven't tried that out because this is obviously not the same issue. Because actuators are fine, I think, and nothing changed on the scope. So I'm just gonna call it a new computer, and yeah, thanks for watching the video, guys.